The movie opens up with Frank getting out of bed to meet the citizens cheering him up, singing for him, and praising him for turning their town into a better place. Frank is enjoying this treatment, and the foods all bring him to a new place. Barry and Sammy then tell him the world is about to get so much better, as Frank marches forward to see the love of his life, Brenda, but she turns into a mush, waking him up from the nightmare. They get ready to do their patrol, and the world is completely different from Frank's dream. The citizens are dull, and the world seems quite bland. But Jack picks up a megaphone for Frank to make an announcement. He wants everyone to share, and this includes fridge time. He says it's the best way everyone who needs fridge time can get it. The foods are all annoyed at this, and they mumble. Sammy has an idea after noticing the sadness on people's faces, and he tries suggesting a plan for a cinematic show, but Frank cuts him off immediately. He says there's a lot to do rather than just watch TV. He catches sight of a can that's not supposed to be in line for fridge time, and he tries to reason with them. He plans for his cool world expansion plan to be a savior for everyone, and so everyone gets to work, helping to move fridges to the city. It's a very steep hill, and iced tea begins to rebel, alongside the other foods. The weight of the fridge pulls Jack back, and Frank is pissed off. He asks if they can't see the goal he's trying to work towards. The fridge would have cooled hundreds of foods. Barry quickly comes to separate them, and the foods all leave to do their own thing. Meanwhile, later in the day, Barry goes to a corner of the streets and finds food making graffiti. There are Frank and Jack, and they are highly non-depictable imagery. They even spread false rumors of Frank and Jack, and the foods decides it's time they fight the real enemy. Barry defends Frank, giving the food good reasons why Frank has helped the foods out a lot. They ignore all these and insult Frank. Meanwhile, Jack is bruised from the whole fridge incident, and he tries to get Frank to help him out. Frank refuses, trying to not push the human agenda among the foods further, and he's immediately approached by Barry. Barry says something has to change, but Frank turns a deaf ear. He doesn't need Barry joining the people complaining, and Sammy joins in. Frank is adamant, and eventually, the Who confrontation leads to nothing. He says Jack is there to enforce the rule, and this is exactly the reason Barry is warning him the other foods are not okay with. He says if he doesn't achieve his goal, then he feels Brenda would have died for nothing. Later, Barry and Sammy are walking down the street when they see two food up to something. They try to trail behind, but Sammy gives their location away, and Barry is forced to go after them. He catches up to them no sweat, and pins them down, revealing a map of some kind of messed up plan. The food reveals it's bigger than Barry thinks, and they're not alone. Barry and Sammy immediately get some costumes to make them blend in, and they go to the food hideout. Other foods are starting to get skeptical and get into an argument. They're interrupted by Barry and Sammy in disguise. They go over the plan to lure Barry away, and then end the lives of Frank and Jack. It's pretty messed up, and Sammy almost gives them away. Barry steps in trying to convince them otherwise, but Iced Tea drops a bunch of knives. He senses something is wrong, and he cuts Barry's disguise open. They all gang up on them, and Barry tells them Frank doesn't have to die. The foods disagree, and the scene changes to someone in Frank's room. It's Barry, and he tells Frank what's going on, and immediately they get ready to leave. They make their way out of the building and run towards the main gate. Frank and Jack get outside, and the food locks them. Turns out it was all a setup, so they won't have to kill them. Jack tries to get in, but the gate is too high. Barry tries to reassure Frank he'll calm the people down, but he gets kicked out as well. The foods leave the gate, and they're all trapped outside. Frank is annoyed his revolution was for nothing. Jack points out he doesn't have bath salts, the thing that allows him to see and talk to the foods. This causes an argument between Barry and Frank, and Sammy comes to mediate. He tells Barry to be the bigger sausage and approaches Frank, who is still upset. Sammy paints the picture in a different way, telling them to see it as a fresh start for them instead of an exile. Jack joins in and says his hometown isn't too far from here, and so they begin a new journey. Frank is excited about the whole fresh start idea, and he sees it as an opportunity. They've been walking for hours and Jack is starting to get tired. He collapses and Barry decides to take control. He uses the balls of Jack and makes him run as fast as possible. Frank gets tired of donut stories, and he tells them all to stop. He's wondering how far they are to his hometown, but they soon approach a tunnel. The tunnel is very unstable, and Barry lets Jack get to his hometown on his own. Everything's going smoothly, and Frank reminds Frank of their past. No matter what they've been together all these years, and that's all that counts. He says he's not mad at Barry, and this gets Barry upset. He makes Jack crash into the tunnel wall, and it starts to collapse. They manage to get out in time and arrive at Jack's hometown, but it's completely deserted. Everyone's gone. No food, and certainly no humans. Even the humans Jack knew are now dead, but Barry is sure something is wrong. They go into the bush, and just then the bath salts are starting to wear off from Jack. Frank gets into another argument with Barry, blaming him for not bringing the bath salts when they were exiled. But they're immediately interrupted when some wild berries show up. These little monsters are uncivilized, and they have only one goal in mind: kill the human. They begin to charge at Jack, and everyone runs away. Things get super intense as they're starting to bite and dismember Jack. Barry quickly comes to rescue and goes to save Jack. They reach a dead end, and in one final moment, Barry pushes Jack to jump over the cliff. They surprisingly make it, but crash and Jack slams his head into a stone. Barry and Frank don't stop with their banter, but they push Barry ahead to see a light. When they all check it out, they find a city they claim to be the promised land. This seems way too unreal, and it looks promising. The gang turns to Jack, and they can see he's in a really bad shape. Barry and Sammy don't seem to care about Jack, and they try to convince Frank to abandon him. Frank goes to Jack, and he lies to him, telling him they'll be back, and they'll definitely bring some bath salts. They make their way towards the city, and Barry tells them they shouldn't let their guards down. He disappears into a bush, telling them to keep a low profile. They get a glimpse of the city, and it's like heaven. Everything is organized and cheerful, and different foods are doing different things. Sammy is impressed with how well their entertainment is, and they even see all the advanced stuff the foods are using. It's levels ahead of theirs, and the food even knows how to read and write. Just then a dark storm cloud is starting to form, and Frank suggests they save the happy foods. They want to alert the foods, but they're interrupted by a PA doing just that. The lids close and all foods are safe from the rain. The gang starts to split up. Sammy goes to a theater and Frank's wandering around. He's impressed by the food since it's everything he wanted to build, but Barry is still skeptical about the whole perfect place. Back at the forest, Jack wakes up from his sleep, and he suddenly gets ambushed by unknown creatures. Frank decides to give the city a try, but immediately all the foods start mindlessly approaching him. If you're enjoying this crazy recap of Foodtopia, make sure to smash that like button, tell us the weirdest moment in the comment, and don't forget to hit that subscribe button. Barry watches as a woman is about to get attacked, and he quickly goes to help her. It was actually a training exercise, and all the food starts approaching him too. The same thing is happening at the theater, and they all get cornered. They quickly make their way to a car, and after messing around with it, they manage to get it working. They can't drive to save their life, and they crash into a garbage can. The foods catch up with them, but instead of dismembering them, they celebrate them and take them to some fancy building. They're met by Nutricia, who reveals to them that they're actually famous heroes. They're known for starting the revolution, and all the foods welcome them. Nutricia tells Frank how they were able to achieve such progress, and makes him feel better about himself. She tells the gang to stay, and Frank is definitely into the idea. They're interrupted by a ceremonial horn, and they go outside to see Jack being transported. They immediately go to save him, but they're too late. Sammy manages to get them through the gate, and what they see shocks them. The foods aren't mutilating Jack, but are instead cleaning him up. They give him some bath salts, and Jack can interact with the foods once more. Frank lies it's all a surprise for Jack, but Sammy is skeptical. Barry shows them a window, and they see a whole bunch of humans living around. The doctors get to work on Jack. They find fault with his spine and help him correct it. He's finally able to walk again, and he asks if he can see Frank again. Nutricia tells Frank the reason for their accelerated growth is because they domesticated humans. They use humans for heavy-duty work, piloted by food, who go up their body. Nutricia shows them their surplus fridges where all foods can occupy individually, and even tells them the humans' knowledge helped them a lot, teaching them how to read, practice medicine, and even drive. She sends Sammy off to a theater, tells Frank to join them in the council, and leaves Barry to find his own path. They go their separate ways, and Barry sees Colonel Mustard in a training practice. Frank is introduced into the council member, and when given a document to read, Nutricia finds out he's unable to read, quickly covering for him. Meanwhile, Jack is shocked at the fact that humans still exist. He's even more surprised to see a girl named Jill. He fumbles and embarrasses himself in front of her. They get called to the training ground, and each human line up. Jack sees Barry and goes to talk with him. They share their experiences of the place so far, and Barry gets an idea. Colonel Mustard accepts Barry to pilot Jack. They begin the track exercise together, and Barry has to go through so much obstacle. He manages to get Jack to the end of the course and hits the buzzer. Colonel Mustard sees potential in Barry and challenges him to prove himself. The humans return back to their cabins, and it's time for them to sleep. After their last exercise together, Jill has taken a liking to Jack, and even tells him about her childhood. They get along together and understand more on how it feels to be piloted. The gang has come so far. Sammy was able to produce one of the best movies so far, making others even jealous. Frank was able to graduate, and Barry is a fully licensed pilot. Frank goes through the drawings of a little kid, and it's of their past adventure. He's sad Brenda isn't here to see their perfect world, but Nutricia reassures him otherwise. Barry meets up with Colonel Mustard, and they notice the chemistry between Jack and Jill, similar to the ones they have themselves. They make their way to get some fuel for the humans, secretly driving to an unknown town. The suits activate, and humans get ready to move out. They move past some trailers and go into the homes of some foods. The humans begin to eat all the foods one by one, and Barry and Jack learn the shocking truth of the perfect world. The first half of the season comes to an end, and if you enjoyed that recap, make sure to leave a like and subscribe.